Imagine someone wheels a fake ATM right into the lobby of your bank.
Okay.
Like they just plug it into the wall, they turn the screen on, they just wait for you to walk through the front door.
Right, because it's inside the bank, you're not questioning it.
Exactly. Because you trust the building.
Yeah.
You naturally trust the machine sitting inside it. You slide your card in without a second thought. And right now, attackers are doing the exact digital equivalent to Microsoft 365.
Yeah, it's wild.
They're literally subverting the infrastructure of companies like Google and Amazon to, basically steal payroll directly out of employee accounts.
It completely upends how we traditionally teach digital safety, right? Because we
Right.
spend so much time telling people, look for the padlock icon.
Check the domain name.
Exactly. Check the domain, trust the reputable platforms. But when those reputable platforms are the ones actually hosting the malicious infrastructure, all of those standard defense mechanisms just fall apart.
They really do. Well, welcome to the Deep Dive. It is August 7, 2026, and things are moving incredibly fast in the cybersecurity space right now.
Always are.
Always. So our mission for you today is to trace this fascinating and honestly slightly terrifying through line across a whole stack of recent threat intelligence and research papers. We're going to look at how modern threats are simultaneously attacking three entirely different layers of our technology.
Right. The human layer, the physical hardware layer, and the software supply chain.
Yeah, and we want to understand not just what is happening, but the actual underlying mechanisms of how these attacks work.
Because the common denominator across all the sources we're examining today is really the weaponization of trust. Attackers have realized that breaking a system through brute force is, it's inefficient. It is so much easier to just observe how a system operates normally and then subtly manipulate those rules so the system just, effectively hands over the keys.
Okay, let's unpack this. Starting right at the top of the stack with the human layer, or the identity layer. So there's a recent report from Arctic Wolf Labs, and it details this massive Microsoft 365 adversary in the middle campaign, or AitM.
Right, the AitM phishing.
Yeah, and it's completely bypassing multi-factor authentication. It's targeting organizations across healthcare, education, government, mostly in the US, Canada, and the EU.
Yeah.
And the threat actors are being tracked as Storm 2755, which, I love this, they're also known as the payroll pirates.
Yeah, payroll pirates, along with a related cluster called Storm 2657.
Right.
And that payroll pirates moniker, it comes from their primary objective. They are hijacking employee accounts to reroute salary payments.
Just straight up stealing paychecks.
Exactly. They aren't interested in deploying ransomware or, stealing corporate secrets. They just want to change the direct deposit routing numbers in the HR portal right before payday. So to do that, they have to manipulate the authentication flow perfectly so they can steal a live session token, basically standing in the middle of the conversation between the user and Microsoft.
Which brings us back to that bank lobby analogy from the start.
Yes.
The attackers are using highly trusted infrastructure to build that lobby. The victims get a voicemail-themed phishing email, right? And when they click the link, they don't go to some shady misspelled domain. It actually triggers this 6-stage redirection chain that bounces through services that security filters inherently trust.
Right. The chain is meticulously designed to evade automated scanners. It actually begins with a Google Meet redirect URL.
Wow.
Yeah. And from there, it moves through Google's outbound link infrastructure. Then it hits a campaign manager dynamic click tracker, which is just standard advertising infrastructure.
So to an enterprise firewall, this just looks like, what, an employee clicking a calendar invite or an ad link?
Precisely the goal. It looks totally normal. After the tracker, the traffic points to an HTML object hosted in an Amazon Web Services S3 bucket. And finally, that S3 hosted page redirects the victim to the actual phishing infrastructure. So automated security filters evaluate those initial jumps. They see Google and Amazon domains with impeccable reputations, and they just allow the traffic straight through to the user's browser.
The bank lobby is pristine, so you walk right up to the fake ATM.
Exactly.
But when you land on that decoy page, the technical sophistication kind of goes into overdrive, right? Like, it doesn't just ask for a password. The decoy page silently interrogates your machine.
Oh, yeah, it's intense.
Like JavaScript executes in the background, grabbing your screen dimensions, window dimensions, time zones, browser languages, the operating system.
Yeah, And the script also checks the WebGL vendor.
Right.
For anyone unfamiliar, WebGL is a JavaScript API, and it's used to render interactive graphics within a web browser. So by querying the WebGL vendor, the attacker's script is basically asking your graphics card for its serial number or manufacturer details.
See, I was wondering about that when I read the report. Like, why do they care what graphics card I'm using if all they want is my password to steal my paycheck?
They are looking for virtual machines and security sandboxes.
Oh, because researchers use those.
Exactly. When a cybersecurity researcher analyzes malware, they usually do it in an isolated, simulated environment. And those environments often lack dedicated physical graphics hardware. So the WebGL response will look really generic or like it's software emulated.
That is so clever.
Right. The attackers want to ensure they are targeting a real human sitting at a real physical computer. If your screen dimensions look strange or your graphics setup points to a sandbox, the script knows it's being analyzed.
And it just bails.
It just aborts the attack, yeah. It shows a benign page instead.
So the attackers are verifying you before you can even verify them. And then, once it gathers all this fingerprint data, it packages it up and sends it via an HTTP POST request to a PHP endpoint. And just to clarify the mechanics here for you listening, an HTTP POST request is essentially the browser handing over a clipboard of data to a server, right? In this case, a server running PHP code that processes the fingerprint data. I think it even queries a geolocation API to get the country code.
Yep. And only after the PHP endpoint analyzes that clipboard of data and confirms the victim is a viable target does the script proxy the real Microsoft OAuth login page to the browser.
So sneaky.
So the user types their password, they enter the MFA code from their phone, and the attackers instantly capture both. They complete the login on their end, generating a valid session token.
My immediate thought when reading that was, okay, they stole the session. But sessions expire, you know? Like I log into my bank and it kicks me out in 10 minutes if I'm inactive. How are they keeping the door open long enough to actually wait for a 2-week payroll cycle?
What's fascinating here is how they maintain that persistence. They use residential proxies to blend their malicious sign-ins with normal consumer traffic.
Okay, what does that mean exactly?
Well, a residential proxy routes internet traffic through a legitimate device, like maybe a compromised smart TV or a home router located in a regular neighborhood.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So to Microsoft's security logs, the attacker's login attempt looks like the employee is just logging in from a home Wi-Fi network in their own city.
So no alarms go off for unusual geographic logins?
None at all. And to counter the session expiration you mentioned, the attackers run automated scripts to refresh those compromised sessions approximately every 8 hours.
Just constantly pinging it.
Right. They continually ping the server with the valid token, signaling that the user is still active, and that keeps the session alive indefinitely. It acts as this invisible, persistent backdoor into the inbox, allowing them to monitor workflows and strike exactly when payroll is processing.
That is wild. So even when we secure the network path, attackers just step under it. But moving on, research out of MIT CISA by Daniel Trujillo and Menjia Yan implies something worse. What if the hardware itself is betraying the software?
Yeah, this is a big shift.
We are moving from a hijacked network session down to the actual physical silicon of our devices.
We are. This takes us to a vulnerability at the absolute microscopic level of cybersecurity. The MIT researchers developed a zero-privilege local code execution attack called interrupt injection.
Interrupt injection.
Yes, and it completely bypasses Spectre v2 defenses on both Intel and AMD processors.
Okay, to really grasp the mechanics of this, we need to talk about branch prediction.
Definitely.
Modern processors are always trying to guess what instructions they will need to execute next to speed up performance. Right. If the processor guesses wrong, it throws away the work and starts over.
Right.
The original Spectre vulnerability revealed that attackers could trick the processor into guessing wrong on purpose and then read the sensitive data left behind in the cache from that abandoned work.
And the industry spent years developing mitigations for that exact behavior.
Yeah.
One of the primary defenses is a sequence of safe instructions that the processor runs to sanitize or clear out the branch predictor before handing control back to the operating system kernel.
Just wiping the slate clean.
Exactly. It ensures no poison guesses are lingering.
So think of the processor's branch predictor like a slide projector. It's queuing up the next slide before you even press the button. The Spectre defense is basically someone coming in and clearing out all the slides between presentations so nobody sees what was up there.
That's a good way to look at it.
What these MIT researchers did is figure out how to perfectly time swapping a fake slide into the projector. In the exact microsecond, the machine is changing slides, like right between the sanitization step and the kernel actually using it.
And the mechanism they use to force that swap is a hardware interrupt.
Right.
An interrupt is essentially a priority signal to the processor. So if you move your mouse or a network packet arrives, the hardware sends an interrupt telling the CPU to pause what it's doing, save its current state, and handle the immediate event.
So the researchers are basically using the processor's own fire alarm against it.
Yes. By timing a hardware interrupt so perfectly down to the exact microsecond, they interrupt the processor immediately after the sanitization sequence is finished, but before the operating system actually takes control.
A microscopic blind spot.
Exactly. During that temporal blind spot, they inject a malicious branch target, repoisoning the predictor.
Okay, but let me push back on the practicality of this for a second, because I looked at the metrics in their paper.
Sure.
They tested this on an AMD Zen 2 machine running Linux kernel 6.14 with all the default Spectre mitigations turned on.
Mm-hmm.
The exploit leaked arbitrary kernel memory at a rate of 5.47 bytes per second.
Right.
5 bytes a second.
Mm.
I mean, a text message is bigger than that.
Mm-hmm.
Is a vulnerability moving that slowly actually dangerous outside of a laboratory?
Right.
Like, is this just a fun academic parlor trick?
I get why it sounds slow, but you have to view that speed alongside the accuracy and the specific target. At 5.47 bytes per second, the technique achieved a 91.97% accuracy rate.
Okay, that's high.
Because the researchers knew exactly what they were looking for, that slow drip of data was enough to locate and read the ssetter shadow file, which is where Linux stores system password hashes in 5 out of 10 attempts.
Oh, well, if you know exactly where the keys to the kingdom are, you don't really need to steal the whole castle.
Exactly. And remember, this is a local execution attack that requires 0 privileges. If someone runs this on your personal laptop, well, they already have access to your machine.
Sure.
But think about cloud computing. In a shared cloud environment, hundreds of different customers run virtual machines on the exact same physical processor.
Oh, wow.
If one malicious tenant executes this code, they can reach across that microsecond gap and read the password hashes of the hypervisor itself or other tenants sharing that silicon. In that context, local execution is highly dangerous, regardless of speed.
So if you're an IT administrator listening to this, your first thought is probably, I'll just run a vulnerability scanner to see if our servers are exposed.
Right.
But here's the nightmare. Tracking and patching this is an absolute logistical mess. The researchers disclosed this to AMD and Intel back on February 5th. AMD just issued a security bulletin on August 6th, designated AMD SB 7061, noting that Zen 1 through Zen 4 processors are affected.
Yeah, AMD stated the vulnerability involves how Linux implements the safe RAT mitigation sequence. The fix actually requires a Linux kernel patch, which was written by AMD engineers Borislav Petkov and David Kaplan.
And that shipped on June 2nd, right?
Yep. The patch adjusts the processor's register state as if the sequence completed perfectly, bypassing the vulnerable instruction. Intel, meanwhile, reviewed the research and claimed no mitigation is necessary for their chips.
Okay, but the real tracking nightmare comes from the fact that AMD did not assign a common vulnerabilities and exposures number, a CVE, to this hardware bypass.
This raises an important question. How are system admins supposed to track this? Automated vulnerability scanners rely almost entirely on CVE databases to flag risks on a dashboard. When the lines blur between hardware behavior and software mitigation and a CVE isn't issued, those automated alerts never trigger.
So they just have no idea.
Administrators are forced to manually audit their Linux kernel commit history to verify they have the specific patch from Petkov and Kaplan instead of relying on automated vulnerability scanners. It relies entirely on human vigilance in an ecosystem that has just grown way too complex for manual checks.
Wow. So while administrators are, hunting through kernel logs to fix a microsecond timing flaw on local hardware, a completely different nightmare is unfolding at the systemic layer.
Yeah, a much louder one.
A much louder one. One that is entirely remote, incredibly loud, and happening right now.
Yeah.
We are moving through the physical foundation up to the automated factories that actually build our software?
Yes. So CISA, the U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, they issued an urgent advisory regarding a vulnerability in JetBrains TeamCity. This is tracked as CVE 2026-63077. and it carries a CVSS severity score of 9.8 out of 10.
That's basically as bad as it gets.
It is. The flaw involves the deserialization of untrusted data via the agent polling protocol.
Okay, deserialization is one of those terms that gets thrown around a lot in security reports. To visualize it for you listening, imagine moving to a new house, right? You serialize your life by packing your belongings into tightly sealed, labeled boxes for transit.
Analogy.
Deserialization is the process of unpacking those boxes at the new house. The vulnerability occurs when the system unpacks a box and just immediately trusts and executes whatever's inside without checking it. Like the system assumes it's unpacking a lamp, but the attacker packed a live grenade.
Right. The software takes that incoming data stream, reassembles it into an object, and because there is no validation step, it translates malicious code directly into system commands.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
This exploit requires absolutely zero authentication. An unauthenticated, remote attacker can send one of these poisoned boxes over the internet and execute arbitrary operating system commands with the exact same privileges as the TeamCity server itself.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, a compromised TeamCity server is a worst-case scenario.
Yeah.
TeamCity is a continuous integration and continuous deployment server, a CI/CD pipeline. It isn't just storing data, right? It handles downstream CI/CD pipelines. It pulls source code, compiles it, runs automated tests, and deploys the final software.
It holds the keys to everything.
Exactly. It's the factory assembly line. If an attacker gains control of TeamCity, they can silently modify server states and compromise build artifacts, essentially poisoning the software supply chain for everyone down the line.
So your developers could have perfect security, but the factory itself is compromised.
Yes. The final application shipped to customers will have a backdoor embedded inside it.
And that brings us to the ticking clock for anyone relying on these pipelines. CISA has flagged this vulnerability as actively exploited in the wild. Under Binding Operational Directive 2604, the deadline for federal agencies to patch this is August 8, 2026, which, based on today's date, is literally tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
JetBrains hasn't even updated their advisory to confirm the active exploitation, yet the U.S. government is sounding the alarm.
Relying on standard vendor disclosure timelines is just becoming increasingly dangerous.
So what does this all mean? We promised you a deep dive into 3 entirely different layers of technology, and the underlying theme is remarkably consistent. Cyber defense is no longer about guarding a single perimeter.
No, the perimeter is gone.
Exactly. Attackers are weaponizing our trusted infrastructure with AitM phishing, exploiting the microscopic gaps in our physical hardware with interrupt injection, and poisoning the automated factories that build our software through TeamCity.
You know, seeing all this converge leaves me with a very specific thought.
What's that?
If our hardware defenses can be bypassed by microsecond precision timing, and our human defenses are easily bypassed by trusted URLs, are we rapidly approaching a point where human defenders simply cannot react fast enough?
Wow.
We might be entering an era where AI-driven autonomous defense systems are the only way to secure these layers, effectively removing humans from the defense loop entirely. Because relying on a person to spot this stuff manually just does not scale anymore.
That is a fascinating and wild thought to sit with. An autonomous defense loop.
Well, we will leave you with that to ponder.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the digital systems you trust every day. Keep an eye on your supply chains. And if you are running TeamCity, please go patch it immediately. We'll see you next time.